My guest for the morning, Horace Ni Ayi Ankra, is a former chairman of the NDC, UK Ireland chapter. He's now based in Ghana. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you.
All right. And Nanaya Wedichum, before now, was a special assistant to Alan Chiramantin, who contested Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo of the NPP in the flag bearership race that ended with the latter being elected as a flag bearer. He's also a member of the NPP. Thanks for joining me, sir.
I'm still the special assistant, so...
Don't worry, I'm not fighting you for that, but don't worry. Okay, so we have to talk, and we know that Labour are still in dialogue with government, and so far, according to what the news reports have been, it's ended in deadlock.
What is happening on the Labour front, not just in the last week, but for some time now, is quite disturbing. In the sense that we've had so many strikes. You might ask yourself whether it is lack of transparency or it is lack of good negotiators. But having said that, I think all in all, it is quite disturbing. I think we have come to a point as a country to either sit back and look at our laws regarding strikes, and then probably move from there. I think that when the UK was faced with such kind of calamities, Margaret Thatcher and co. actually took the bull by the horn and then actually changed the strike laws to sort of like streamline things, and we all see the benefits. Some of these laws are that of you getting a certain percentage when you vote to go on strike, and you should notify stakeholders as to when you are going on strike. I think I last listened to one of the gentlemen, one of the leaders of these 12 unions, saying that it wasn't well patronized because it was a very last minute kind of decision.
That was the day after they called the strike.
That is very, very unfortunate.
Since then we've had full collaboration from...
It's not about since then there has been a full collaboration. It is unfortunate in the sense that I believe that same laws will be in Ghana where there will be a certain percentage of members voting to agree to go on strike. And then you notifying stakeholders a period. You should have a time that you want to inform people that you are going on strike. But for you to actually even inform your members the day before, then it means that something is wrong. As much as I side with the workers that they have to actually look at their pension, because I mean it's not much, and if you're going on pension, it is something that you have to be looking forward to. As much as I side with them on that, I disagree with, I think, the way that the whole process was conducted. To me, it makes it somehow something that you have the right to fight for, but there's some illegality as to how you are trying to pursue it. I hope that the continued dialoguing and then making sure that this thing will come to an end.
Your thoughts on the current strike action, and so far the stalemate, despite the efforts to make sure they negotiate with the workers.
Yeah, thank you very much, Roland. I shared on to say that if you consider the issue of pension, everybody puts so much premium on it because it's very relevant. And another factor is that, you know, pensioners are put in a very disadvantaged position, especially in a macroeconomic environment characterized by high inflation rate and depreciation of the local currency. And with this background, any serious government will actually have to take the issue of pension seriously, and there should be that kind of mutual understanding on the critical issues of fund management and very important factor as disbursement, especially when there are issue of mistrust. And if you cast your mind back to the merchant bank Fortis deal, you know, some journalists or some political activists raise issue about the fact that there was a great suspicion that the monies that Fortis was going to use to buy Merchant Bank is being sold from the second-tier pension contribution, if you remember. And the government did not come out strongly to give...
But those are speculation.
Yes, speculation. And now I'm trying to link it to the current.
That monies that have been lodged in the
Bank of Ghana
could be used.
Yes, and now you see one of the issues...
regulation, etc.
One of the
issues... Do you
issues,
believe such sentiments?
I have strong suspicion that...
You have strong suspicion?
Yes, strong suspicion.
How can it happen?
Because, one, even if in terms of how much should be at Bank of Ghana, there is disagreement over the figure. Workers are saying 1.2 billion, government is saying 40-something billion or so. So 440 million.
That's the official figure.
That's the official figure, but the question is, do workers believe in that figure? And my good friend of Osukwachi was saying that we know the key variables in the calculation, number of workers, contribution per worker in the period that the amounts have been at the Bank of Ghana. But you must appreciate that data in this part of our world, you cannot put much trust in the data. So I believe that we must look at this issue from not only a selfish point, but from nationalistic point. That pension is very important, and as a government, you must do everything possible to ensure that it is managed.
I still have to remain with you.
Yeah.
How can you make conclusions that the government will not be nationalistic as far as its own workers are concerned, ultimately having, in hindsight, knowing that, well, at the end of the day, if things go wrong with a public sector worker, the brunt is borne by government?
No, I'm just urging government to be more nationalistic, because if you look at the defensive posture, if you look at the defensive posture by government, it is surprising, because the law is very clear that the contribution, the second-tier contribution, should be given to workers group for them to choose their own fund managers. I don't see government interest in that. Of course, government should have interest in protecting workers' pension. That is very critical. And I think that from simplistic point of view, government can say that, well, I want to have a representative on the team or committee trying to select whoever manages the pension, but not to impose a fund manager on the workers. And I think that has been a core of this disagreement. And it's quite interesting that, if you look at the very simple administrative issues like invitation for meetings, government will say, I remember I listened to the Deputy Minister of Labour, Honorable Baba Jamel, saying that we are here waiting for them to come for meeting. And the workers said, but we got the letter at 2:20 p.m. You understand? So, well,
you can have late notice to a meeting. There's nothing wrong with it.
No, but the fact is that, do you use that channel? But do you write a letter when now there are so many means of inviting them for an emergency meeting, and the government was complaining as if the workers were not cooperating? And yesterday, it was quite unfortunate that government knows that it was seeking some interpretation on certain clauses. Government still wanted to have a dialogue with the workers. And the convener made a very important point, that government is fighting them on 3 fronts. So they don't know where to start the fight from, So I think that the management has not been proper, which is usual characteristics of this government. And I believe that the president himself should take keen interest in dealing with this issue.
Mr. Ankara, if you monitor the report, definitely, this very strike by the public sector workers is not only crippling the public service, but also sections of the economy as well. It's definitely going to lead to dents in revenue, etc., over the last couple of days that we've witnessed it. What should have been done first? Is it that the concern that was raised by the workers over perhaps a fund manager or a trustee being imposed on them, etc., and government subsequently saying, well, we're saying come and let's negotiate on this very issue of whoever will manage your funds or will be a trustee to you?
Yeah, every strike has an adverse effect, and whether it's big or small, would have an adverse effect. I always believe that government would always act in good faith, and I believe that government is actually looking at the pension that these people will be enjoying in future as something that has to be protected. I don't want to believe that it will be fair on government if we should be speculating, if we should be suspicious of certain things. At the end of it all, I think that the first and foremost sort of angle that we can look at is transparency. If parties will be transparent with one another and will be sincere with one another, I believe that certain things would not even come to the fore of the public, and matters could be addressed. Before somebody would go on strike, which is democratic, I think that maybe it would have gotten to a point where matters could not be resolved around a table. But I think that it is about time, as a country, it's about time that we look at our strike laws. I think it's becoming too much. I think that...
you feel it's been abused?
I think so, because listening to that gentleman...
But picketing, I think it's even more prevalent in developed economies than in Africa. So what's the point?
Oh, but then, look at the way they go about strikes. I mean, you have enough notice, you have people who ballot. Actually, the ballot paper will come to your address. You would take yes or no.
Whether you want
yes,
the group you belong to go on strike or not.
Or not. You understand? That will be counted. 60% of members, if they are in favor, then of course we are going to be going on strike. At what time? 3 months down the line. So you have enough time to actually sit and dialogue, discuss matters, and making sure that this thing doesn't actually take effect, so that it doesn't affect the economy. So I think that this is one area that some of these unions are not actually looking at, so that matters will be addressed properly. So I think we've gotten to the point that our strike laws have to be looked at. Having said that, I think I'll have to say it again, that Ghanaians are actually sent home too early, age 60.
You mean the pension?
It is too early.
The pension age, 60,
yes,
needs to be moved up.
Oh yes, Ghanaians have been sent home too early. Now, why am I saying that? Look, if, for example, you move it up to, say, 65 or even 70 for men, and then 65 for women.
Why?
Just a minute. Just
discriminatory.
No, it's not.
The gender people will be on you.
Well, it's all over the world as such. You move it up that way, yeah? You use what? The pressure on the pension fund, won't you? And then you will still have the benefit of people who are 60 but still sane, productive, doing what is right, and making sure that productivity in the country is what? Up and running. That will help with the economy. Now, the other side of the argument is that, okay, when you keep the 60s and the 65s, where will the youth go? You understand? That is where you can come up with this high-tech apprenticeship for the youth, to address youth unemployment. So there's that sort of creativity that should come into play. I believe that the Ghanaian is actually sent home too early at the age of 60. And we have energetic 60-year-olds who still feel like, oh, I want to go to work. He or she is at home. And that's the sort of traffic that you see in town around about 11 a.m. 60-year-olds, still energetic, they can work, they can think. But, hey, they're being asked to go home. So what do? They just drive around. Our pension age, I believe.
Also, so we need to take a holistic, this is the first time I'm hearing this. So I've heard about the 65 before, but not argued on this very basis.
Oh yes, it will even reduce pressure on the pension fund, so that at least, for example, in January, these folks will be 60, won't they? I mean, assuming they will have to go out at the age of 65.
Because there's a correlation between the age group of workers, let's say in an organization, and its repercussion or effect on money spent on health, etc., and even on productivity in workers.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I think you can draw some correlation. You can't rationalize and say, if you have a youthful work group, as far as in a firm is concerned, you the productivity level will be the same as the one that is perhaps very much mixed in another organization?
Oh, well, I mean, when I say productivity, I'm talking about
the general productivity.
Yes, the general productivity.
But it's the micro like, that tends to build into.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but I mean, let's look at it carefully, and we'll realize that.
I think there's now the advocacy for it to be moved to 65, but beyond that is a substantive argument. Now, at what point should we have had all these preempted? Didn't we see the signs? Didn't we know that the workers were agitating, raising concerns about management of their second-tier pension contributions, and whoever was being proposed by government, they having difficulty with it?
Yeah, I think that speaks volume about the proactiveness of the government, and one of the key management qualities of any government should be that your ability to preempt some of these important factors within the scheme of things. And I have already made the point that government must take this whole thing very serious. But just to go into the argument about the pension age, I think that you need to look at it as you were suggesting in a much more holistic way. But I somehow also agree with my senior colleague that we need to look at the pension age, but it has to be structured in a way that, because there are certain sectors. I lecture on part-time. In my faculty, it's most retired professors from the traditional universities who are running the faculty that I work with. So it tells you that they are still strong, but as you said, I mean, my ability to teach for 6 hours a week, and I mean, stand on my feet and do.
But then we have to. That's why you. That's why the two of you say there needs to be a balance.
Yes, there needs to be a balance. But I think that is something that may not be able to have a national policy to increase the pension age to 65. There will be disagreement because of what you said. Because you have huge youth unemployment, and if you look at the way we are educating the youth population, it tells you that people need to migrate into both white-collar job and also blue-collar job. So you must also look at it from that angle. But you've made a fantastic point, and that's why I like you, that government should look at critical things. You don't sit down for workers to raise alarm, knowing very well that you passed the law, and this law was passed, I think, in 2008 or so, was suspended. The implementation should have started in 2010. So
actually started in 2000.
It started in 2010.
Started in
yeah, because I remember I started contributing for Provident Fund and other tiers, in 2008.
No, Provident Fund had always been there. That's even for private firms.
No, it came into effect with this new pension law.
Well, we do understand. Anyway, let me not go into the argument about Provident Fund. So.
No, I still know that government is actually acting in good faith, and for whatever stance government is taking at the moment is in the interest of.
But government is being too defensive. That worries me, because look, the money does not belong to government.
No, government is not. Government
is not.
I think if you had the minister.
Okay, let me ask a question.
Government is not saying that.
Let me ask a question about the subject of money, etc. Is it fair for the workers to say, because we feel we have done our own calculation and put together the summation of what we have contributed, give us our monies? It doesn't work in plain language like that. And if you look at the experiences of fund managers around the world that have collapsed, we're not saying all the fund management organizations around the world have collapsed, but those that have fallen in trouble based on bad or unethical practices by individuals within the management setup that ultimately have led to the collapse of those fund management organizations. Ultimately, the states had the responsibility to come in for a bailout. Yeah.
So you don't blame government for the stance that government is taking, because experience shows us the mass wealth of the UK and these private sector managers, they've caused problems. But having said that, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't be looking at other areas for the economy to be thriving. But I think that is exactly what government is looking at. Let us actually look at, well, the law had been passed, and if the law had been passed, all these gymnastics doesn't stop the law. So if the law is saying that give them their money, that is fair, give it to them. But I believe that government is also at the same time trying to look at, yes, the money is yours, you can have it, we don't have any argument with that, but let's move that pari passu with how we can streamline things for the future. So I don't think that government is actually looking at not giving them their monies, but government is actually doing its best to act in good faith. And I think we should actually stop the suspicions and then hopefully look that...
Well, that suspicions show that government is not trusted.
Yeah, but I want to make a small point on that.
It's a matter of trust.
I disagree the way you structured the whole argument with regards to...
My question?
Yes, because, you see, government posture to me does not reflect being progressive and solution-oriented.
I don't get
I agree with you that...
You mean general state?
Yes,
state,
government intervention. The fact that government will have to come and bail out when there is issue of mismanagement doesn't mean that the solution is for you to become the manager or you select who manages the fund. It has to be situated within the proper context of setting up a good regulatory framework which can govern fund management in the country. And I think that if government was making argument from that perspective, then you would say that government is trying to protect workers. But it looks as if government is insisting that because of the point you make, I will have to come in to intervene. Let me select who manages the fund. I think that is
because I preempt.
Yes,
could be
there could be. I think that,
like
and you see, fund it could be. You see, our private sector, and you know, I always make argument for having good source of funding for our entrepreneurs. This fund, if it is properly managed, can give soft loans or good rates to even the commercial banks for on lending to agribusiness and those who are involved in value chain and create jobs. So
the bottom line is, at the end of the day,
take it serious.
If it's adequately, pensions are used to turn around economies.
Yes,
right? That's what I'm told.
Yes, and the Scandinavian countries, that's what they do.
Hence, if you move the pension age up, it reduces that pressure
on the money.
Yes. For a short while.
It's not for a short while.
For a short while.
I mean, look how...
progressively over
I mean, yes, look at what has happened to all these big economies, and you should appreciate this argument, because it does help in productivity. It does reduce pressure on the pension fund. It gives government the ability, just like you're saying, to actually channel these monies into profit kind of ventures.
I get your points, though.
So I mean, I mean, what would be the burden on, let's say, a 16-year-old, let's say, a paymaster of the police service, yeah, to go on pension at the age of 60, when the person is strong, hard. Take the IGP, for example. I mean, this strong, tall gentleman with all this passion for policing and experience. Were we going to say that IGP go sit home?
Yeah, we want a younger person.
No.
But that's how we're structured as society.
It's not about a younger person. It's about us then being creative. If we are saying that keeping them there will help the economy, why don't we also become creative and look at avenues of addressing youth unemployment? But we don't just have to come up with a blanket thing and say that, so where would the youth go? Think. Do something. And I am saying that high-tech apprenticeship would actually address youth unemployment.
But I think we have to be careful the way we push for the extension of the age, because you see, if you look at that cluster,
just an advocacy.
No, I agree.
It's not speaking based on.
Yeah, I mean, it's something. If you follow research
opinion.
in pension, it's an argument that is at the forefront.
Now,
of
government is negotiating with the workers. They've reached a stalemate. They're supposed to continue today. If the workers don't come to any conclusion, what does it mean? The strike
very unfortunate for the economy. I think that already.
I think somehow the workers should also budge.
Yes, but it depends on government, what government put on the table, and I will urge workers to also look at the bigger picture. I mean, they are looking at the bigger picture in terms of pension, but also look within the context of what we are going through as a nation. I mean, each hour that we spend off our decks and outside our production unit causes productivity to the economy. So it's quite important, the point you make, that they should also consider.
The workers want to have their monies into their own occupational funds. And government says that, well, we need to have some level of
involvement.
hand
Control.
or involvement.
Use the word.
Not
Control.
necessarily control.
It's control.
I don't think. I think
No,
following the strike action is not. The talk has not been about control. Okay. So what should it be? Should we allow the workers then to have the funds in their own occupational fund management?
That is the law. That was what.
Yes.
So I mean, that is exactly what I'm saying to you. That government is acting in good faith. Government is saying that if something goes wrong in future, you're going to come back to us. Let us play a part. Now, at the same time, I'm also saying that that doesn't prevent the law to take its course. You understand? So, I mean, if the law is saying that at this point in time, pay the second tier into these particular accounts, let's do that because the monies are for the workers. I'm happy that government is saying that. It's not saying that the monies are not for the workers. We are concerned in certain areas. Can we actually sit and look at those areas so that your future could be well protected? So
over the last 2 years,
government is just
over the last 2 years, we've had a lot of strikes. A lot of strikes. Even the current strike also has in it another strike called by the teachers.
That is why I'm saying that, look, you give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, okay? And if we look at where we are as a country and where we want to go to, I believe that if all these things are taking place, and especially listening to the gent, is it one Tinkra or something? Yeah, listening to what he said, yeah, it tells you plainly that we have gotten to a point, yeah, in our national life to actually look at the strike laws again and make sure that this, if Tinkra should come up and say what he said, yeah, all he's saying that, oh, we really want our monies, but we are taking a step that is illegal. To me, because if you say to the whole world that you informed, yeah, your members the day before the strike, oh please, it makes it so illegal that
procedural.
Yes, that so
procedural
is illegal. It's illegal. Let us use that word. Okay. It takes off the beauty from whatever is due you. You understand? So we have gotten to a point where we have to look at our strike laws.
In local parlance, we say buga buga. Is that the best means by which we need to be resolving issues with government as a main employer?
Of course not. I mean, in a democracy especially, there is what we call rule of law. And rule of law must prevail all the time. And I have not actually paid attention to that aspect of the argument. But I believe that the organized labor is being led by competent people whom I believe will do the right thing. So I'm not aware that they did inform their workers a day to the strike. Of course, I mean, if you look at it, I have checked that it has not been that effective. And you must also understand it from the micro point. You know, individual department heads will also try to ensure that they get their work done and may not, you know, sanction their staff to join the strike action. So that may be a cause than rather the procedure in announcing the strike.
Should government take action?
Government has already taken action.
No,
they've gone to the Labour Commission, gone to court.
The action they've taken is just to get an interpretation of what the position or the role that the government as the main employer, central government, will play in all this. Yeah. So I think that's the interpretation they seek. I mean, just trying to put it in plain language.
And I learned they have even abandoned that.
No, they have not. The case is still in court, but they're negotiating. That's not part of...
I'll chip in a personal experience here. I remember my days in the UK when I was on the trains. And I mean, to be a train driver in the UK is like, you know, it's a good job with good monies and stuff like that. You don't care going on strike, yeah? But then the proper things will be done. The proper channels or proper laid out rules will be followed, yeah? But here be this. When you go on strike, you don't get paid. As simple as ABC. From the very hour that you go on strike, you don't get paid. Now, what then did we realize? Workers will not get paid, yeah? But then the union leaders will be paid. Why? What is the argument? Oh, we still go to meetings. We still meet ACAS, yeah, to talk on your behalf. So we are working. And then you lose hundreds of pounds. And they are still being paid over tea, coffee, biscuits, and stuff like that. Yeah. So at the end of the day, I mean, you, the worker, yeah, although you are fighting for your rights, yeah, you should also sit back and actually look at certain things. Now, if we should insist that when you go on strike from day one or from the very first minute you ain't getting paid, I think people will actually sit up and ask their leaders certain questions before they would even take that, yes, we are going on strike. But so the rules, I mean, the laws, I think we have got into a time that we have to.
I think for political parties, especially your opponent, and you in that very position, which you are and your party is, if government looks bad, it's good for you as well.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, we have to be more patriotic, and we are patriots as members of MPP. We put Ghana first than looking at our parochial political interest. So that is not the whole posture of our party.
It has always been the case.
It has always been the case. But the government should rather be more efficient in managing the affairs of the state. And I've already made it quite clear that workers, I believe, will listen to government. But government must come up with, workable proposals, you understand. They need to bring persuasive issues on the board.